There's a moment that changes everything when the metrics stop mattering as much as meaning. When you have climbed the corporate ladder only to realize the view from top isn't peace, it's pressure. Today, listeners, on this episode of BizBlend podcast, we are talking about that turning point. What happens when you leave behind stability to build something that actually fills you with joy? Listeners, I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today my guest, Deborah Coviello, knows that journey firsthand. She's not just a CEO whisperer, she's a truth teller who helps leaders move from chasing results to finding peace of mind. Through her work and books like The CEO's Compass and the new CEO Playbook, and nearly 500 episodes of The Drop in CEO, she's redefining what leadership looks like in a world that often confuses chaos with success. So let's all drop in, not into hustle, but into honest reflection about purpose, peace, and the courage to start again. So, Deborah, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really excited for this conversation.
Sana, I so appreciate, first of all, the opportunity to speak to you and your listeners and the depth of research that you have done on who I am and my purpose. And I love the summary that you brought forward and looking forward to sharing stories and insights with you and your audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Deb. That really means a lot. And yeah, let's try to explore this journey because I think, here right now, what I'm feeling is a personal connection here because um 2 or 3 years back, I was at the same place where I was kind of in that mess of choosing that should I stick with the corporate world? Should I stick to this? Um, it might sound very cringy, but just waking up, going, fighting the traffic, fighting the daily hustle, the daily grind, working, coming back, having your dinner and just sleeping. I mean, it's just, performing. It's not I'm not feeling anything. I was exactly at that place, and thankfully I came across podcasting. I started to understand, how it exactly looks, and that's something really, really aligned with what I actually wanted to do. uh, I mean, the fact could be that, my loved ones, my family, they wouldn't agree with me or they wouldn't be aligned with this. However, as a person, I really feel aligned doing this. So that's why there's a huge, very big personal reason, behind exploring your journey, Deb.
Well, I sincerely appreciate this. And if I can take you through the journey, and again, we are trained. Well, let me go back even further. I mean, I was a creative as a child. I was a very talkative person. I loved
Okay.
to write. I loved to do painting, dance, sing, arts and crafts, everything. And then, while that was celebrated, I then went into the educational system and became trained and obedient and following the rules. And amidst all of that, while we learn technical skills to be able to enter the workforce, not always did I have the support system for the creative side. And so I too then went into the corporate structure for which I had realized lots of benefits. I was sent for training, I had great experience, travel, compensation, and also with, raising a family, all of that came with, and you figured it out. And it was fine, but then that's all we knew. And anybody else that was outside of that is like, "Oh, they're not following a practical life." But I too, about 7 years ago, was under such stress at work and exceeded my capacity to be able to manage the stress through all my normal means, and I told my husband, "Something has to change. I don't know what, but something has to change." And with that, things did change. I left my corporate job. I was actually kicked out of the nest, and that's another whole story. But with that became a time of reflection, of self-discovery of what then did I enjoy. And while I had all these technical skills, I knew I could still do them, but what was it that was meant to do? So for everybody out there, take advantage of any time that you have a pause in your career. It's a wonderful time to assess should you continue what you're doing or maybe make a slight correction. Anyway, I then built a consultancy for which it leverages my technical skills. But what I discovered in the process, and I continue to discover, is my love and joy for writing, for speaking, for podcasting, for the exact same way of human connection across the globe, self-discovery, and every time I listen to my own podcast or others, I get inspired by new insights or perspectives. And so that creative energy that I had as a child is flowing now. And yes, I still do consultancy, et cetera, because I have to pay some bills, but I also love being in pursuit of things that give me joy and peace of mind. And with I get a little bit more flexibility and balance to spend time with family, friends, and community. So I'll stop there, but it has been scary because I have to be practical and make means to have a lifestyle. But at the same time, I feel liberated and joyful, and people can't believe like how I've reinvented myself. So I'll just stop there, but it has been a wonderful, scary journey.
I love that. I love that tip. Wonderful, scary journey. And I think I can also say the same for myself. Yet, I mean, it's still a long way to go, but it's kind of, um, similar feelings. And I think you also, brought the pragmatism here because on the other hand, on one hand, it's all about the corporate grind and stuff, but on the other hand, there is kind of a misconception around, um, you know, uh, when it comes to freelancing or being a founder or an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, that you'll get all the freedom, it's a glamorous life, and it's going to be really fun. So I just want to start something of myself and everything will be fine. But that is not the case there. It is scary, as you perfectly, I think, very practically gave the drew the picture there, that we have to pay the bills, but at the same time it is possible to find joy in something that we are doing and is also helping us to pay the bills in there.
And it causes you also then to reevaluate your priorities. So in this
Mm.
process, I also, not that I had any health issues, but I could have been healthier. I realized that if I want to have a long and rewarding life and continue to give back to family and community, I needed to spend more time investing in myself. And I was not doing that or allowing myself to do that while in a corporate situation. Now I have that flexibility. So when we think about finances or success or leading indicators of success, do I have to be earning the same amount of money as in I did in corporate? It's important, but do I have enough? Do I have enough to cover my insurance, to cover my bills, and have a basic lifestyle? We start reevaluating what's important. Am I getting much more sleep? Ooh, that's currency. Am I not taking any more medicine? No, I'm not taking. Do I have to go to the doctor as much? No. So, how then do we measure success in currency, not just in dollars, cents, etc.?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I feel slightly richer because I am so thankful for my health, for my sleep, the number of great interactions I'm having with people that maybe I didn't have time for before. So there are scary parts where on the consulting side, I did not have enough work. That's very concerning. So I've had to do some other things in contract work to pay the bills. But also in the process, I've learned of, oh, what are people willing to pay for? What do people value? What are my
Mhm.
gifts? I'm learning people are paying to be on my podcast. I'm starting to get paid to speak. I'm compensated for purchases of my book. People like my book. I am recognized and hired for consultancy because I put out all that social media on LinkedIn and my videos, and I'm building trust with people. Again, human correction. Some of my priorities since being in my own business is improve my health,
Yeah.
invest in myself, not others, invest in myself, and invest in my reach. And I do that day in and day out, and all in helping others not work as hard, not struggle as much, so they can spend more time with people, family, friends, community, and themselves. So, with that, I can probably claim success. outside of just measuring it based on finances. But again, I've done some
Yeah,
things also to make sure the finances are satisfied as well.
exactly, exactly. And I think this is such a like the proof is in the pudding. Like because some might say that finding joy in whatever you're doing, it's a luxury. Especially
Mm,
when there are responsibilities to be done. Somebody is a caregiver or a provider.
true.
So
I agree. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I expect someday I may have to be taking care of, an older relative. I've
Yeah.
taken care of my children along with my husband and extra help. So I have experienced those very challenging times, and I know there will be more ahead of me. But in those times where you have control over your time, it's a place of peace. I mean, I wake up in the morning, and I wake up very early, and I have 2 or 3 hours to myself to exercise, to write, to organize my day, to do family chores, just to take time to myself, and then, yes, I will work hard, 8 to 10 hours, but then I've also learned there will always be work. I can stop working at 5 or 6 in the evening and spend time with my husband, go to sleep at an early time. There are times, though, I do work on the weekends because I have commitments and stuff like that. So, but it's very limiting because we can get frustrated in a corporate environment that, "Oh, I didn't get that raise, I didn't get that promotion, I didn't get that project." And we measure ourselves in terms of external validation. When you have your own, company role or position or you freelance, a lot more is in your control, and so there's much more sense, "Okay, I can do this, I can do this. Okay, maybe I didn't get that gig over there, but I can continue to network over here and create," and those leading indicators or actions can create the future that I want. I won't go into a lot of examples, but there's a lot more
Mhm.
in our control than the corporate environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Deb,
Yeah.
as you mentioned about schedule and everything now, and I keep this is something that I've also learned doing so many conversations, and I keep on saying this that we as humans, we are built in a way, not generalizing, but we kind of would um love to prevent any change in the circumstances or the environment or within us. Our brains will try to always protect us. And when we're transitioning from a full-time job or a job which is of stability to something where we have to start everything from the scratch, um how do we go through that transition, Deb? Like, did you have any kind of struggle in terms of the schedule? Because our bodies are in that biological clock or rhythm that we have to get up, go out, and now we are sitting at home working remotely, just like how people felt during the pandemic when suddenly everything got into halt, and we were all working remotely, or we couldn't even work. So yeah.
Well, change is hard. If for some reason you leave a corporate role, whether by force or by
Mhm.
choice. I will say first, before you talk about any schedule, is take some time for yourself because so many C-suite leaders or people that I talk to who are making a transition are immediately updating their resume and going back to the same level of activity and grind that maybe they didn't like. So I ask people, you need a pause. You need to take a little bit of time for reflection. And yes, you may return to the kind of work that you did because you have to, but take a few moments to say, well, I did like this about it, but this is what I didn't like, or this is what I would prefer. And just take that time to maybe course correct. But coming back to what we're working from home now. Um,
Yeah.
I did have to start setting up a schedule because then you get into this place of, I could be doing to this, I could go to be that
Yeah.
networking event, or you could be stalling like, oh, I got to, create my PowerPoint that explains what I do. And maybe you don't want to do that. I'd rather be networking. There is an element of you need to impart upon yourself self-discipline, but discipline on multiple fronts, discipline to prioritize what is strategically necessary to move my business forward versus I'm going to all these networking events, which is just activity. So you do need to manage strategic work and then technical activity. Additionally, when you work from home or you start your own business, you can start working 12, 14, 16-hour days because there's no end to the day. You also have to put that discipline with some wiggle room of, I'm gonna not start until 7 in the morning, and then come 6 o'clock, I'm just gonna shut this thing down. But no, because I was good and highlighted the right 10 things on your list you need to get done that day, and if I got the top 2 high priorities done and a couple of the mediums, pat yourself on the back. You focused on the most important things and moved yourself forward. But give yourself grace as an entrepreneur. You have an infinite number of things you could do. But yeah, you do need to put some level of discipline doing things you like to do, some things you don't like to do. But at the end of the day, did you get through the most important stuff, whether it's for your business, your pursuits, or even for yourself and your energy?
Understood. Understood. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
agree.
just discipline, and you actually go back to organization, but
Mm.
organization as defined by yourself, not by a
Yeah.
corporation.
Corporation. Yeah. True. That is true.
I'm hoping this is helpful. I
No,
love
it
this
is.
conversation.
It
Oh,
is.
wonderful. Great, great. I just want to make sure that, my responses are helpful to you because it sounds like you and I are absorbing each other's perspectives, and hopefully the audience is enjoying this chit chat back and forth.
Well, I hope so. I hope so because I think many of us have gone or are going or could be going through this transition, through this
It
transformation,
is.
because times are changing. People's, our perspectives are changing right now. I often speak, have conversation with my father. That 20, 25 years back, we never even thought about being a freelancer, or, I'm not aware of that. Even my father is completely clueless that, people do have right now that liberty, that option, that freedom to, start something of their own. And
Yes.
does require a lot of clarity, courage as well,
Courage,
um,
yes.
discipline, consistency, a lot of, once again, grind in here. But then at the same time, I think I'm really, really thankful that, people are right now giving importance to health holistically, not just
Yes.
physical, not just, mental, but holistically, with your loved ones, but first with yourself. So I think that is something I'm really, really, bullish about, very positive about.
Because to lean into that, I have seen so many people because they place themselves last, that sometimes bad things or acute health situations will happen, forcing you to make a change. Whereas if you make it a priority, that then you can choose how and when you act. I've seen, I mean, I just turned 60. And I'm starting to see on social media people with all these aches and pains and disability and, retired, but, not moving. And I'm saying to myself, that's not the life that I want. I want to be able to continue to move and provide value or be there for my family. My children, I have 3 adult children, and they're going to have family, and I want to be there for them. So
Mm.
with time, again, fame and fortune and money are important in the beginning. Stability and protecting yourself, because you started talking about survival. We need to do safe things in order to survive. But with careful planning, you can mitigate some risks. You can take some decisions to try things out, knowing maybe you can go back. But as soon as you start having health issues, sometimes that's hard to reverse and not in your control anymore. So best to, even while you're in a corporate environment, because you may not be able to jump, I'd like to your point in part, start thinking about how you can invest either in your mental or physical health. Because if you have to stay in a corporate role, can you sustain it at the same level and perform? You don't want to have to be forced out because you're unable to perform because the body breaks.
Mm,
Yeah.
it does. It does.
Yeah.
Um, and Deb, your concept of lift, light, and
Yes.
lead,
Yeah.
it really flips traditional leadership onto its head. So if you can, help us go through this, how exactly does it work? Like, what are the main components here? How exactly does it look like in the beginning? How does it work on the leaders or with the leaders?
So I thank you for picking up on that. Those 3 words, very interestingly, were written on a napkin while I was
Oh.
on one of my consulting gigs, where one of my first
Mhm.
consulting gigs, I was actually an assistant consultant under one that was experienced. And I was in the early stages of figuring out my brand and how to differentiate myself. So I'm just writing random words on a piece of paper. And they say it's good to have the same initial on each of the words. So lift,
Yeah.
light, lead. I probably didn't completely understand them, but they resonated with me. But fast forward as I put the napkin away for many years. And then recently
Okay.
I pulled it back out and somebody picked up on that. And when I said, this is what it means, anytime I drop in CEO, anytime I drop into an organization, yes, you assess the business challenge, but I also assess the people. And one of the things that I find is a lot of leaders don't necessarily, one, believe in their gifts, but also what is the role of a leader in order to leave a legacy? Another L word is that we should be lifting people up by shining a light on their gifts and help them to lead. And in that pursuit, we leave our legacy. So any leader, skilled person could jump into an organization and fix the technical issues, make the customers happy, and make us more profitable. But unless you unleash potential in the people, those results are not sustainable. So, while yes, you may have to fix things, investing in people is key. And what I find anytime I see a C suite leader, I'll say, do you know you are so good at this? Or do you know you could be at the next level? And sometimes it wakes them up. So I'm like lifting up
Yeah.
by shining a light on them because they don't see themselves that way. Even yesterday, I was networking with a colleague from the past and
Mhm.
he can't get a new job, and he's kinda stuck, and I said, "Wait a second, you've been working in a large company, but do you
Mhm.
know that you actually have all the skills? You've worked in all the areas of manufacturing. If you went into a small company, 50 people, not 200, do you think you could be a plant manager?" And he says, "Absolutely." Well, then think of yourself different.
Sure. Yeah.
Outside of this company, you've got all the skills to
Exactly.
be a plant manager. So I lifted him up because all of a sudden he didn't realize that by shining a light on what I already saw were his skills. And you know what? I said, stay in touch. I bet you he's going to call me someday and say, guess what? I'm now leading a plant. Well, that's me leaving my legacy. I don't get compensated for all these conversations, but I
Yeah.
sincerely care about investing in people to leave a lasting impact because I'm not here forever, but have I changed the trajectory of the people that I interact with? So, one, as a leader, I do this, but leaders also within their own organizations need to find a way to lift people up, shining a light, and help these people to lead differently. And that's what leaders should be doing these days. It's not necessarily about the results. It's important, but this is how we leave our legacy.
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah, because by default, whenever we think about the word legacy, it's about, a road named after you or a building named after you or, you are celebrated. But I think it can be as small, maybe your family or your friends or your ex-colleagues or, someone who would come back 10 years later to thank you because you showed them, the path that they also didn't realize that they were
Mhm.
kind of made for that or maybe they were aligned with, just like the example that you shared. So I think it doesn't necessarily has to have to be always popular. It can be as small, maybe 5 people who actually genuinely thank you because you showed them the path that they wouldn't see.
And to add to that, don't look for the feedback right away. In the moment, they might say, oh,
Mm.
like you woke them up. You may not hear from them from a long time. You may or
Mhm.
may not network. Maybe you speak to them once a year. Maybe you don't talk to them for 5 years because you're in different ecosystems. But the reward is when all of a sudden, like maybe you reach out to them again, or maybe they contact you and say, Deb, I just want to let you know. Remember that conversation we had about 10 years ago? Tell me again. And then they said, well, it's because of that. And I have a friend. I left the company about 7 years ago. No, 10 years
Okay.
ago. And she told me, remember, Deb, when you were getting ready to leave the company, you pointed on the table and like pushing a button. And said you needed a reset. I remember that conversation, and I now have left my company. I needed a reset, and now she's a coach and an entrepreneur. I just wanna let you know that that stayed with me, and I'm now doing my own reset.
Oh,
Wow. Getting that feedback is wonderful. So,
it's
okay.
wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it is. It is. It is. Super, super. So Deb, before we wrap up, of course, I think our listeners they would love to connect with you. So if they would like to connect with you and explore more about the work, the resources that you're providing, what would be the easiest way?
So there's 2 ways, but, easiest if you hang out on LinkedIn, contact me on LinkedIn, Deborah A. Coviello or the Drop-In CEO. Reach out, direct message me. It's me there answering all of your inquiries, or go to my website, dropinceo.com, and go to the contact page and just say, "Hey, you wanna connect? A few minutes just to get to know each other. Maybe I can provide you some insights." I just wanna reach people, connect with them, and see if we can provide some value. So again, I just want to say, Sana, thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation and talk with your audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And listeners, what I'll do for every one of you is I'll have all the details in the show notes and just refer to them along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And as we wrap up, I think I really I will keep on thinking about this, what we discussed today, that peace of mind isn't the absence of chaos. It is the ability to see clearly through it. That's what a good leader does. And leaving corporate isn't just walking away from, identity, your own identity. I think just the job shouldn't be your entire identity. It is a part of your world, part of your life, but it can't be your entire life. And it is about walking toward yourself. And maybe the real success metric isn't the growth or revenue. It is about how calm your inner world feels when everything outside is, chaotic. So, Deb, thank you so, so much. This really, really felt like, I'm just, um, connecting with a mentor. I'm trying to understand how exactly it looks like. So, thank you so much for showing the direction here.
It was
Really
such a
needed.
pleasure, Sana. Thank you so much.
And to all my beautiful listeners out there of this blend, may you find your clarity amidst your chaos and the courage to choose joy over noise. Until then, this is BizBlend. I'm your host, Sana, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Catch you next time.